So private money sounds exciting, but once people start trying to do it on their own, the questions, just like anything in life, start piling up really fast. So how do you know if the deal is a good fit? How do you avoid the wrong lender, the wrong terms, the wrong expectations? Today, we're talking about why working with a private money broker can be such a powerful advantage and how that extra layer of strategy and support can help protect both borrowers and lenders. LeAnn Lyon is here to discuss all of this and so much more. LeAnn, it's so good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to see you again.
So good to see you. And I love that we're going deeper on this really important topic that not a lot of people understand. And so the first question I want to ask is, why do some people think they can just skip the broker and handle private money on their own when it's so complicated?
Well, great question. I love that. I think a lot of people assume that it's simple. Like, hey, I just need some money. My neighbor has some money. I'll just borrow some money from somebody.
Oh my God.
On the surface, it sounds straightforward, or even, hey, I need a down payment for something. I'll just borrow from my parents. I mean, we're taught that that's okay sometimes. So you think you could do the same thing on these bigger deals, but it's just not really recommended. When you actually start getting into terms and timelines and fees and how the exit is actually going to work, it really stops being simple really fast. So my role is to sit in that complexity, which I enjoy, so that they don't have to figure it out all by themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it sounds too good to be true, right? And it's like your neighbor wants to borrow you money, your friend, and it's like you just jump into it, but you don't think of what can go wrong. So what can go wrong when someone tries to do this without guidance?
Well, the most common problems aren't usually super dramatic right in the beginning because, everybody's excited and everybody's optimistic, but it's the quiet things like the rehab timeline that might have been a little aggressive, like as in too short, or a prepayment penalty that they didn't notice. And now they are going to get dinged if they actually pay off the loan in advance, or an extension structure that can get expensive really fast. So on paper, deals can look fine, but the way it's funded might make it actually kind of fragile. So by
Mhm.
the time you realize it, they're already mid-project and things can go south really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to that structure, right? And structure, just like anything in life, is so important. But why is it really important when it comes to this private money as well?
Well, because it's money,
Mhm.
ultimately. And with money, there's real risk. The real money, real risk. And that's for everybody involved, not just the lender, but the borrower as well. So having a really clear structure sets up those expectations up front as to how the funds are going to get used, when they're going to get dispersed, how they're going to get repaid, and what happens if or possibly when things don't go as planned. So it really protects the borrowers and the lenders. And without that structure, people are relying on assumptions, and you know what they say about making assumptions.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't repeat it.
Nope.
There's a few words in there. So, what does a private money broker actually do?
What I really love about being a private money broker is I'm really a matchmaker. I'm a connector. I have, over the years, established a pretty large network of just people I know in general because I love people and I love organizations. So I'm the matchmaker between the person who wants to borrow and the people who have the money to borrow. And they're institutional lenders for the most part. So that's where I get to be that matchmaker, find the right fit with the right expectations for the right deal and put them together. And my job really is to help both sides say yes to something that's going to make sense and make money for both sides.
Yeah, and how is that different from just calling one lender directly?
Well, that's what a lot of people try to do. Oh, I have a lender. I'm like, great, but not one lender doesn't necessarily have the appetite for absolutely everything that can come your way. There's commercial, there's ground up construction. We've talked on a couple of other episodes about fix and flips and bridge loans and something we call a DSCR. And not every lender wants to do everything. And then you think about inner city, suburban, rural, tracts of land. There's all sorts of things. Well, I have access to hundreds, if not thousands, of lenders, and I can find that right fit. In fact, even short-term things. I did one time so far, and I expect I'll do more. But Monday evening, somebody reached out. They had a Friday closing, and I was able to get that figured out. There were like two lenders who could have done it. And but I knew who they were. We got it. We got the quote, we got the bid, and we were able to put it together that quickly. If you just know one lender, you're stuck with what they can do.
Right. And then, so how does having a broker help protect both sides?
Well, I'm really looking for those mismatches, those red flags. I'm not going to take any deal to one of my lenders that, I don't think they can say yes to. So if somebody is really resistant to giving me paperwork or not communicating with me well, I'll say, I'm not sure that this is a fit before I'll take it to a lender and burn a bridge. Likewise, I'm not going to, if I get several opportunities from different lenders, I'm going to take the best one I get generally to my borrower so that they can not have to spend all the time figuring out who to ask for money from. So that's again that matchmaking part. For borrowers, I might, I might help them realize they need to push back on a timeline that's too aggressive. For lenders, I might need to ask the harder questions, like I've said, make sure that we know who the borrower is before we get to the point where they need to know who the borrower is. And they do eventually need to know all the details. So that's pretty much how I help protect both sides.
Right. And why does your teaching background how does it shape the way that you work with clients? Why is your background important?
Well, I think it's important just because I love teaching. And so it gives me an opportunity to educate, especially the borrowers, especially the new borrowers. There's people at all stages. So I've worked with borrowers who have done hundreds of deals. They know exactly what to do. They're like, I'll tell you what you need to do half the
Right.
time. Because they just are so familiar with it. I have the documents in the file in like 30 minutes. But other people need a lot more handholding and understanding and education. And I just love that part of it as well. So I don't want people just saying, uh-huh, uh-huh. I want people to deeply understand what they're doing. And I can break these concepts down into more plain language and make sure that they're understanding and invite the questions because, well, I taught middle school math, so we had lots of questions. And really, middle school math is all the math you pretty much need for this business as well.
Right. And then you also have real estate experience. So how does your real estate experience help?
Well, having been in real estate, I've seen how deals actually play out beyond the closing table. I know that construction can run long, that buyers sometimes back out, that markets can shift, and that's really important to know. Like when you're setting up your exit strategy today, markets could change in 3 months. They can change tomorrow. So I don't treat any deal like it's happening in a vacuum. And so that experience really helps me ask those real life questions and spot places where the numbers or the plan feel, and I'm a super optimist, but sometimes the plan can feel a little too optimistic, even for me. And it keeps the
Right.
funding conversation grounded. So that
Mhm.
it really makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about this? Can you share an example of a time that the right structure made a big difference?
Yeah, I've seen situations where the property and the investor were super solid, but the first offer that they got, in the rehab just what didn't work out. I mean, they had the opportunity to back out of it at the last minute without losing too much. I mean, there's always going to be some money potentially lost in deals, but if we'd gone with a different structure, they could have been locked into it and really lost a lot of money and caused a lot of stress. So by finding a lender whose terms can really match the realistic timelines, projects can just be better.
Yeah, for sure. And what should someone know before they reach out to you?
Really, they don't have to know a lot. I mean, they don't have to show up. They do not have to show up and be the expert. They can rely on me. I love it when they are willing to show up and be open. That's important. What helps me most is that they know what they're wanting to do. Do they want to do a fix and flip? Or are they trying to build a small portfolio? And just being, upfront with where they are with experience and financially what they have to bring to the table as well, because lenders want to invest in things where there is some skin in the game for the most part. And then we can figure out whether private money is a good fit for them or if there's another path. I just had that conversation with somebody. They wanted to purchase a grandparents' house. I said, great. What are you going to do with the house? Oh, well, we just want to have it as a cabin. I said, that's amazing. I'm sure there's a lot of cherished memories there. And that's not for private money.
Mm, right. So then who would be a good fit for working with a private money broker?
A good fit is somebody who does know they're taking their goals seriously. They're willing to treat this like a real business decision. They made, especially if they need speed, if they need some flexibility or options that banks don't offer. Actually, at the same meeting, I met with a couple of mortgage officers and I said, yeah, do you ever have deals that you can't fund? They're like, oh my goodness, all the time. And we don't have anybody like you. So we're going to get together really soon and meet up
Yeah.
because banks have their buy box. We talked about that in the last episode. And I'm able to step in when what my borrower wants to do just doesn't fit what the banks can generally fund.
So then to someone listening who might be interested or is just listening a little bit closely because they feel really connected to this, what would your biggest encouragement be to that person listening?
Just reach out. There's a lot of information on my website. I've got FAQs, I've got the replays of these podcasts, I've got coming soon. My book and some ebook information will be there. My, where you can meet with me, how you'll see me, my speaking events, typically they're local if they're in person, but also just ways to connect with me if you want to just book a call and hey, I've got this idea. What do you think of this? How could this work? I'd love to work with you on that.
Right. Amazing. Well, can you remind us of where people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to lionlegacycapital.com, and that's Lion like my last name, Lyon, legacycapital.com. And that's just the best way to find me. All that information I just mentioned to you is right there, and would love to meet up with you.
Amazing, Leanne. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you think we missed today? Is there any other things you'd like to add before we go?
Actually, there is. I really would love to work with people who want to dream big. And, to we're told to put our money away, be safe, get your 401k, do the right things. And that's great. And you should do those things. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but there are other things you can do with your money. And so look at ways that maybe you can contribute to the community that you're in because real estate has a real opportunity to do that. Let's say you have two left thumbs, you cannot do any sort of fix and flip, but you have an opportunity or you could find an opportunity to have one done. Well, then you can incorporate other people who really do want to do it and still make money at the end of the deal. What could you do with an extra X number of $1,000? I'm not telling you what it is. Every deal is different, but maybe there's a charity you want to fund. Maybe there's a scholarship you could start. Maybe you want to invest into real estate and hold it so that you can do something like a transition housing or a battered woman's housing. There's so much need for housing right now for underserved populations or needy populations. Think about all the good you can do rather than making your 4% or whatever you're making in riskier things than real estate. Not saying real estate is always safe, but man, it's pretty steady if you look at the
Mm.
history of it. So that's really my heart. And that's really what I've talked about a little bit more in my book that I'll share a little bit more about next time.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. And what a beautiful way to give back. It always feels really good to give back to community and that's how everyone stays connected. That especially during this time where I feel like people are disconnecting, I feel like bringing people together is what we need right now.
Yeah. And by the way, another opportunity, the boomers that we've talked about since they were born, apparently, have always been this really big group. Well, the boomers are now definitely selling their final homes and they're looking for support. They're going into where they need extra support. Well, residential assisted living is another opportunity, and people can live in one-story homes, really get personalized care, and not be just living in an institution with long hallways and metal bed frames. So
Mm.
another way that people can invest and maybe even provide some care for their own relatives that they know are reaching that stage.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, LeAnn, for being here today. And I look forward to hearing more about your book next time.
Yay. Excellent.
Yes. So private money is not just about finding money, it's about finding the right match, the right structure, and the right way forward for everyone involved. For LeAnn, that means helping people avoid costly mistakes, stay clear on the process, and make decisions with confidence. Again, LeAnn, thank you for being here. If you guys out there who are listening would like to have access to her, we will have her information in the show notes for you to have easy access to her website and to learn more about the private money lending biz. Until next time, take care, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.